From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock and I'm Michelle Dewberry. Coming up tonight, the government has been massively criticised, some saying that they have put children at risk. Why? Because of the potentially crumbling concrete that is in many schools across this country. We still don't know, by the way, which schools fully it is affecting. Have the government risked our children or not? And sickness benefits. Do you think it should be harder for people to get access to these things? I mean, I have to say, there's millions of people that do not work. The government are saying that many of those could. Are they right or wrong? Should it be harder? And if so, in which ways? And I want to talk to you about drugs. It's been suggested now that we should have what they call kind of safe consumption rooms for people to take illegal drugs in this country. Is that a good idea? Is it going to help get people off drugs, help keep people safe? Or are we losing our minds? It is, in fact, going to encourage people to keep taking drugs. You tell me. And apparently, I've got some great news for you at the end of the programme. Beer is apparently good for your health. Do not say I do not bring you all the positive news here on Dewbs & Co. We've got it all to come. But before we get into it, let's bring ourselves up to speed with tonight's latest headlines.
I'm Lisa Hartle in the GB Newsroom. More schools may be forced to close due to a particular kind of concrete that's prone to sudden collapse. Abbey Lane Primary in Sheffield is one of over 150 in England at risk. Others in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland are also being assessed. GB News Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley has more.
I'm here at Abbey Lane Primary School in Sheffield. It was identified as having this problem rack concrete back in July, and works have been ongoing since then to fix the problem, which has been identified in the kitchen roofing area of the school. This work is due to be completed in December, and the council say that they have spent £620,000 from their capital budget in fixing the problem. And they've also said that they have kept in close contact with parents to keep them updated as to what is happening at the school. With the kitchen area being affected, that will mean alternative arrangements will have to be made for meal times and feeding the children, whether that's packed lunches or other arrangements being made. But for now, the school should be opening for teaching on Monday.
Schools Minister Nick Gibb told GB News the government is prioritising safety, but there may be more buildings at risk.
We took this decision as swiftly as we could. We had to look at the evidence, we had to discuss that evidence with experts, we had to make sure we had plans in place for what schools would be doing when they were told that they probably needed to address this, what was previously regarded as low-risk rack in their schools. But it's the right decision, it's the most cautious decision.
A TikTok influencer and her mother have been jailed for life for murdering two men. Mahek and Ansareen Bukhari ambushed the pair and killed them during a high-speed car chase near Leicester in February last year. Saqib Hussain, who was travelling with Mohammed Hashim Ijazuddin, had threatened to reveal an affair he'd had with the social media star's mother. The women will serve a minimum term of more than 31 years and 26 years, respectively. The number of migrants per boat crossing the Channel has hit a new monthly high. More than 5,000 people made the journey in August in 102 boats. That's an average of 53 people per vessel. The overall number of crossings is around 20% less than this time last year. Another wave of rail strikes has hit services across the country. Members of the ASLEF union are staging a 24-hour walkout, leaving many trains without drivers. The rail delivery group describes the action as unnecessary, but the union says the government is refusing to make a reasonable pay offer. The dispute, which started over a year ago, remains at a deadlock, with no talks planned and no sign of a breakthrough. General Secretary of ASLEF, Mick Whelan, says they'll keep striking until a fair offer is made.
The reality is that we haven't seen the Transport Minister since last December, we haven't seen the Rail Minister since the Act of Bad Faith in January, and we haven't seen the RDG since the deal they put to us with our red lines in that they set up to fail in April. We've been here now for the best part of 14 months. If it takes another 14 months or another 14 years, we'll still be here. And at some point, somebody's going to have to come and talk to us and resolve this situation.
Two former leaders of far-right group Proud Boys have been jailed on charges related to the storming of the US Capitol building in Washington. Joseph Biggs and Zachary Rehl were convicted of seditious conspiracy for trying to overturn Donald Trump's 2020 election defeat. Their prison terms of 15 and 17 years are below US sentencing guidelines and far lower than the 30-year term sought by federal prosecutors. Direct Line will pay £30 million in compensation to customers who have been overcharged when renewing their insurance. The company admitted to an error in implementing new pricing rules, which came into effect at the start of last year. The Financial Conduct Authority brought in the new rules to protect existing customers from being quoted higher prices than new customers. The UK's economy performed better during the pandemic than previously thought, and it bounced back to pre-COVID levels almost 2 years ago. That's according to new figures released today by the Office of National Statistics. By the end of 2021, the economy is believed to have been 0.6% rather larger than it was in 2019. Estimates previously suggested that it had shrunk. The figures paint a more optimistic picture of the economy, despite prices rising at the fastest rate for 40 years. Fergus, Jocelyn and Debbie are just some of the storms we might expect next season. The Met Office says they're being named after the very people working to protect us from them. Meteorologists name storms only when they're expected to have a medium or high impact on people. Forecasters say it helps communicate the seriousness of a storm. It'll be the first time the traditional male and female ordering of names has been altered. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now it's back to Michelle.
Thanks for that. Well, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm with you right through until 7 o'clock. I say that, I always say that every night. I'm with you right through as I'm doing like this strap yourself in, sit down. We're going to be sitting here for the next 24 hours. Yeah, some kind of like, I don't know, telephone or whatever. Yeah, I'm with you till 7 o'clock. I need to probably pare that down a little bit because it is only an hour after all. Anyway, Daniel Moylan, a Tory peer in the House of Lords alongside me, as is Paul Embry, a firefighter and a trade unionist. I'm going to give you a night off talking about the strikes tonight.
Oh, that makes a nice change.
I know. I sat there and I thought, you know what? Strikes still ongoing. We've got the rail ones again this weekend. You're going to have junior and more senior doctors.
You're saying you're going to give me a night off, and now you're stirring it up.
I'm going to give myself a night off, but there might be a bit of me that itches.
Tightest squeeze on wages since Napoleonic times. Directors' pay going through the roof, ordinary workers paying the price. There you go. I got a little bit in.
He got it in. He squeezed it in, didn't he? What do you think to these strikes? Are you kind of over it all now, or are you still irritated by them? Are you on the side of the strikers or the government? Get in touch. Let me know your thoughts tonight. I also want to talk to you as well about safe drug consumption rooms as well. Do you think that that is a good idea in this country and in Scotland, for example, as well? Do you think it encourages people just to use drugs? Will it help people get off drugs or what? I also want to talk to you as well about sickness. Do you think too many people have it too easy in this country? Over 2 million people apparently long-term sick and don't work. Potential reforms coming down the pike at that one. Do you think it should be harder or not? Did I say hello to you, by the way, Daniel?
Well, not exactly hello.
I know, sorry.
You made a glancing reference to the fact that I was in the studio.
Just give you like a dismissive look over the shoulder.
Like he's your butler or something. He was just going to bring you champagne.
Yes, bring my drink in. Sorry, Daniel. Welcome to you as well.
Thank you. That's very kind,
You've got a nice
Michelle.
Rainbow floral.
No, I've done a nice summery tie. I know I have one or two followers out there in the audience who actually do notice my ties and like them when they're a bit more
I think I need to go
colourful.
for a lay down. I've just described it as a floral. That's not floral.
No.
I meant like a rainbow. I meant it was like the colours. It was inspired in terms of its colour by a floral bouquet. Shall I just shut up and move on to what I'm supposed to be doing, which is actually discussing the main news today, which is the fact that in England, get this, everyone, the schools now, you know, of course, all of these kids, they've been out of school for quite some time because of COVID. Well, it turns out now that that was not the end of the lockdown distant learning after all, because you've got a situation now where you've got more than 100 schools and colleges potentially going to have to shut. This is all because of a type of concrete. Daniel, I'll come to you. I shall ignore you no more, because many people are saying that your government has put children at risk. This is all around the fact that this concrete can be prone to what they're calling sudden collapse. You've seen a school in Kent, a primary school back in 2018, where that exact thing did happen. Why are we in this mess?
Well, it's true that dangerous materials, people didn't know they were dangerous at the time, were used in the 60s, 70s and 80s. And it's true, no doubt, that action should have been taken earlier. Let's remember that the primary responsibility for maintaining schools lies with the local authorities or the educational authorities for those areas, rather than directly with the government. And we're talking here about, I believe, 105 schools out of a total of 20,000. And I understand that in many of those cases, not the whole school will have to close, but just a part of it, and face-to-face teaching can continue. But the response has been one where the government hasn't told us exactly what the new information is, but they feel it's safer to make this call at the moment.
No, we do know what's happened, because what apparently has happened is, because this has been investigated for quite some time, there's been surveys being conducted, it was all a little bit chilled out, it seems to me, and then what happened was, apparently, there has been a beam that has collapsed over the summer, and that has now made the government rethink and go, actually, this is very serious, we need to take action right in the here and now, we're going to close these units. That apparently is what's changed. But I'm saying apparently there's still a lot of it seems to be almost opaqueness about what's going on. You're really having to prod and poke the government in terms of getting out the official number and which schools it is. Why?
I don't know about that. I can understand why the government isn't going around saying it's these particular schools, because
Why?
it's for each school to deal with their own parents, because the circumstances seem to me to be different in different schools. Some might indeed have to close, but others might just be closing one part of the school and can carry on. And rather than create a sort of sense of panic, I think it's important that the head teachers of those schools are able to communicate directly with the parents about the particular circumstances that pertain in that case. I mean, the government has spent billions. There has been £15 billion spent, at least, on maintaining and upgrading schools since 2015. And there is a big schools maintenance programme. I do agree with you that sometimes I feel that civil servants, there's a big churn in civil servants, and sometimes balls get dropped, and that might be the case here. But we are talking about, as I say, a very small number at the moment, and it's motivated by interests of the safety interests of the children.
Well, I heard, we're talking about 104 schools there or thereabouts, and I heard the school minister, Nick Gibb, he was being interviewed this morning, and he was saying that all of these schools currently hadn't been informed. That was back this morning. And I'm thinking, well, about 100 odd schools, how long does it take to actually put calls into those schools? Beyond me. Anyway, Paul Embry, you look less than impressed at what he's saying.
Well, I just think it's a sign that we're a bit of a undeveloping country, as I call it. We just seem to be broken in so many ways. Things seem not to work. The police don't do their job. You can't get an operation on the NHS. You can't see your GP. We can't protect our borders. And this seems to me, and without sort of being opportunistic about it politically, but it does seem to me to be part of a pattern of a country that is undeveloping, I think, in quite a rapid way, because I think with this concrete issue, as I understand it, it's not just schools, but it's the hospitals that are affected as well. And we've currently got a third of our school buildings which are beyond their lifespan. So we've got kids going into places that are clearly no longer fit for purpose. And I do think, and Daniel gives the figures in terms of the investment, but whatever they are, there has clearly been chronic underinvestment in education and in schools. And I don't think, by the way, that's a charge you can level just at this current Tory government. I think that has probably been a problem that's been building up for many years. And unfortunately, as before, it's going to be kids who are going to pay the price, because remote learning is not the equivalent of in-class learning. I think we saw during the pandemic the shortcomings of that, the impact it has on children. And it looks now that thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of them are going to be consigned to it. And for them, I think that's going to be a massive detriment.
Yeah, and just to be absolutely clear as well, because I found this quite interesting, many people are writing in saying who's invented and approved this stuff. Philip, for example, says it's like the cladding scandal all over again. Many people are pointing out to how dangerous this product is. I am not, I confess, a building expert, but I've listened to quite a few of them today. And actually, this kind of concrete, people are describing it like an aerobar. It's basically a lot lighter than concrete. It's got a lot of kind of air spaces in it. Which is why it seems to be used quite widely. And this is the point. This is not, as I understand it, a dangerous material that has no place in the construction industry. This is used all over the world. It's been used for many, many years. And to your point, it is used in buildings from prisons to hospitals. It's all over the place. So I don't think the suggestion is that this is an unsafe material and you've got to get it all out. I think what it is like any kind of building material over a passage of time, things do kind of start degrading over time, and it needs maintenance and all the rest of it. Am I right?
Oh, you're absolutely right that concrete does degrade over time, and this seems to be degrading faster. But I actually think, I'm not sure you're right in saying it's still in use. I think this is something that was used in buildings that were put up in a certain period.
Between the 50s and the 90s,
I thought it was used in other countries.
I think
if I'm going to be wrong,
I don't know about other countries.
It was a 40-year period between the 50s and the 90s.
As far as this country is concerned, I don't think this is used anymore. It hasn't been used for quite some time. So the question is, what do you do with schools that seem to be, or other public buildings that seem to have used this material, seem to be perfectly OK? How quickly do you act? Now, you can get that wrong. And it appears for this very small number of schools, probably it has been got wrong, and something should have been done earlier. But as I say, it is quite a small number of schools. There has been a lot of investment over the years.
There has to be, and you touched on it Michelle, a regulation issue, because, I mean, when you mentioned Grenfell, and that's something that's close to my heart as a firefighter, how can you have, in a major advanced Western country like ours, these situations occur where at Grenfell, for example, the entire building was wrapped in flammable cladding and 72 people died as a result of it. How did we not, as an advanced Western country, have in place a regulatory system that prevented something like that occurring? You know, prevented effectively a high-rise residential building being doused in petrol. That's the equivalent of what happened.
But then is it, I mean, you'll know more about it than me. Surely no right-thinking individual would take a substance knowing that it's flammable or whatever else and shove it all in buildings thinking, oh, I know how to sort out these people. I'll make them deliberately unsafe. Surely what happens is, and correct me if I'm wrong, things get, you know, constructed in materials and all the rest of it. And then as time passes, you then start learning more about different things and then new information comes to light and all the rest of it. Surely it's like that, isn't it?
No, I think if you look at the Grenfell Tower inquiry, which is still to give its main report, actually, I think there was clear evidence there of contractors, well, in fact, I'm sure there was, because I sat through parts of that inquiry, of contractors cutting corners effectively and doing so because they wanted to increase their profits. So actually, in some cases, using substandard materials because they wanted to make a fast buck. So there's clear evidence of that. The other question, of course, is why wasn't there the oversight? Why wasn't there the regulatory oversight that there ought to have been? And that speaks to the issue that we've got with these schools. And I tell you what, people will often, and the Tory government under David Cameron had this big thing about cutting red tape, you know, bureaucracy, red tape, regulation, there's too much of it. And it's an easy thing to say, it's an easy promise to make, but the truth is that regulation saves people's lives, whether it comes to things like health and safety.
But a lot of people, this is what my inbox is saying, a lot of people here are saying that they're blaming a lot of this on the building standards and the regs and all the rest of it. That is the point that's coming through thick and fast. Your party needs this like a hole in the head. I mean, Rishi Sunak must sit there, look at himself in the mirror and ask what on earth else can go wrong?
Well, the most important consideration at the moment, Michelle, is not what it means for the Prime Minister or the Conservative Party. It's what it means for children, their safety and education, and their education. And I think the government has probably taken the right stance here to act on the cautious side. I don't think, when we talk about, Paul talks about possibly hundreds of thousands of children learning remotely, I have no reason to think at the moment, from what I've read, that we're in those figures at all.
Well, the National Audit Office in June issued a report and said that 700,000 pupils were learning in schools that required major rebuilding or refurbishment. That's the National Audit Office in June.
Yeah, but they didn't say they're learning remotely.
Well, no, but if you're in a school that basically needs to be refurbed and all the rest of it, then you're going to have to be taken out of that school.
Yeah, the only way of doing any of these large programmes, as Paul will know and anybody else, is you have to have a programme with so much money over each year, over a number of years, and you spend it according to a certain list of priorities. And there'll always be schools waiting or other buildings waiting that are further down the list because you've prioritised the ones that need the investment more. You're never going to solve any governmental problem, at least, by saying we're going to magic up a whole bunch of money, throw it at the problem now. You don't have the resources to do it, you don't have the money, you don't have the staff, you don't have the people. You need a properly planned programme, and that's what the government's been doing over the last 15 years or more.
Hey, are you a parent or a grandparent that's got a child in one of these schools? Because you will be aware by now lots of these schools have been contacted. Let me know how you feel. Do you feel any resentment at the government, or are you just sitting there thinking, well, you know, pleased that we've been made aware in advance and now let's just hopefully get on and fix it? Let me know your thoughts. Coming up next, I want to talk to you about sickness benefits. Are you on them? Are you someone that is apparently so ill that you cannot work ever again? Apparently over 2 million people are in the category of having long-term sickness, and now the government, you're in their kind of line of aim because they want to make it harder to access benefits. Is that right or wrong?
Earlier on GB News Radio.
The Minister of State
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, nah, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock alongside me, Daniel Moylan, the Tory peer in the House of Lords, and Paul Embry, a firefighter and trade unionist. Richard says all of this about the schools, it's just basically a massive attack by the mainstream media to destroy the Tories. If this was happening under Labour, it wouldn't even get barely a mention. Are you a parent, a grandparent? Do you have kids in school? Do you agree with that sentiment? I've got to say, I think this is pretty damn serious. You've got a situation where you've got material in schools that could potentially suddenly collapse on kids. I've got to say, whoever the government is, I do think it would be quite a big story. Some of you echoing the next view from Alex, which is saying, to be honest, if students are being taught at home, that might be a little bit better because then parents at least can see what it is that their kids are being taught. Get in touch and let me know your thoughts on that. Michelle says, this is just another example of broken Britain. I want to be proud of my country, she says, but she feels like nothing works anymore. She says she feels sorry that she has to even think and say that. Anyway, the government is planning to make it harder to claim benefits now because for those people that are apparently so ill they cannot work, long-term sick. Ministers want to cut the 2.4 million people that fit into that category. I find this really interesting. There's some really interesting reforms that are being proposed and it will go out to consultation. But the sentiment that seems to be behind this is the concept that actually the world of work has evolved. Opportunities for people are very different now to what they used to be, especially when you've got the rise of working from home. So do you think the government is fair to start looking at this and starting to shake it up?
I think there's some logic to what you just said, unquestionably. But I always get a bit twitchy about these sorts of announcements when the economy's nosediving, and we're on the brink of a recession, and the chances are we may end up in a recession, and we know what happens with recessions. You know, businesses fold and unemployment goes up, and that means there will be, you know, more people chasing fewer jobs. So to announce this at this particular time and to essentially try to coerce people back into work, which I think as a principle is not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all.
Well, if you can work, you should do. Well, actually, if you can do, you don't have to, as long as you've got the means to sustain yourself. But if you can work and you choose not to, then some would argue, including me, you shouldn't be able to make a choice to live off the state.
Well, I think, well, clearly there are some people who shouldn't be under pressure to work. You know, mothers, for example, people who want to stay at home and bring up their children, or fathers, for that matter. People who are sick, people who are elderly. You will always have a body of people in the country who you would not expect to go out to work, and where necessary to pay them benefits. But I don't disagree with the principle that, you know, people can't expect generous benefits if they themselves are not prepared, if they're fit and able to work and there's no cause for them not to, and they choose not to, then obviously they would have to pay a price for that. I don't have a problem with that. But the timing for me is probably wrong, simply because of the economic situation we're likely to find ourselves in. I think there are other things we can do, by the way, to encourage people back into work.
Like
it shouldn't
what?
just be the big stick. We should have, I firmly believe we should have a job guarantee scheme in this country, which basically allows the government to be the employer of last resort. So you don't have unemployment and...
Cool, blimey, right, hang on, because that in itself, I need to focus on that in itself separately, but just bring you in on this sickness issue and about the potential reforms for long-term sick. Where are you on that one?
Well, Michelle, it isn't very often I get angry with your other guest on your show, but I really cannot believe what Paul has just said.
Which bit?
First of all, the economy is not nosediving, and indeed the figures for the economy have been revised upwards. We are doing a great deal better. We are not on the brink of recession. Our main problem in employment terms...
Are you seething? Look at him. I've never seen Daniel Moylan like this.
I'm really cross. When I was young, we had mass unemployment in this country. We had unemployment of 3 million people, and the big thing was there weren't enough jobs for people. Our problem today is exactly the reverse. We have completely full employment. Anybody who wants a job in this country can get it. We are so short of labour, we imported 600,000 people last year, which is a scandal, frankly. And we've got, and you're telling me that somehow we're on the brink of a recession. We have people, 2.4 million people, who are on long-term sick. Now, in terms of substance, what to do about it, I mildly agree with you.
Daniel,
no, I'm going to finish. I didn't interrupt you.
He's going to tell you, Embry, whether you like it or not.
In a civilised society, people who genuinely can't work should be supported if they need that support. Of course that's the case. But we've seen these numbers double. The number of claims is doubling. And it's absolutely right for the government to say, especially with the new opportunities that Michelle mentioned, working from home and things like that, should say, is it really the case that you cannot work long term? Is it not the case that that you are capable of some form of employment? Because there are plenty of jobs out there. We are not living in a world of unemployment.
We have got sluggish growth. We have got interest rates going
We are
up.
full employment in this country and a desperate shortage of labour.
We know what it means when interest rates go up in terms of the impact on investment, the impact on productivity.
Yeah, people invest more when interest rates go up.
There are still economists out there who do think it's likely that we may tip into recession. You may not. You've got a dog in the fight. I accept that. But nonetheless, there are people who think it is a stark possibility we could go into recession. And we know what happens in recession. We get into that vicious cycle.
But not in recession.
That's not what I said.
Could you address my main point, Paul, which is we have a massive labour shortage.
I said there is a danger.
You're talking about the threat of great unemployment.
Address his point in the here and now.
With the economic situation that we are potentially confronting, with higher interest rates leading to unemployment, leading to businesses folding, leading to a lack of investment, that could tip us into recession.
Yeah, but hang on, because you're projecting.
Hang on,
you're projecting now. He's asking you in the here and now.
If we tipped into recession, Paul, the effect on employment is that, first of all, you could say, well, we won't have another 600,000 immigrants. There'd still be plenty of jobs for people in this country.
We can have that debate. debate. But look, the truth is there is
no shortage of work for people who want it.
When it comes to many people in work, we have got hundreds of thousands of people, possibly millions of people now, working in the gig economy, working in precarious transient employment, which has got no security for people on 0 hours contracts and things like that. So when you talk about full employment, we need to have some perspective in terms of what that means, in terms of what millions of our people are doing and in terms of the jobs that they're working in. But
a lot of people want to do those jobs, by the way, those flexible working jobs, because it fits around their lifestyle.
Well, some of them
anyway,
do.
just before I go down a tangent, what are you on about this jobs guarantee scheme?
I think we need a job guarantee scheme, which a number of economists have called for. It's been trialled in other countries where you essentially have the government as the employer of last resort. We know the evils of unemployment. We know what it can do in terms of the impact on the economy. We know what it can do in terms of the impact on people's private lives, family lives, etc. And there is an enormous amount of work out there to be done. You know, there is an enormous amount of work in terms of productive work, you know, mending the roads and building hospitals and looking after kids in schools and socially productive labour, which people could be put to on a wage, and if they can't find a private employer or a local authority employer to do it, then the government acts as the employer as a last resort. And you deal with the problem of unemployment, and ultimately...
It's a brilliant distraction, because we do not have an unemployment problem in this country. Our problem
Not
is...
yet.
Well, there you are. Our problem is we don't have enough workers for the jobs.
Well,
do you concur with that? Because I need to go to the weather in a second. Do you agree with this point that you've got a surplus of jobs and not enough people that want to do it? You've got this massive rise now in people that sit there and go, hang on just a nanosecond, I've realised now I can get money for sitting on my backside. I am not detracting from people that are genuinely ill and cannot work, or you've disability or whatever, but there are definitely a group of people in society that don't want to work, and actually quite like their life as it is, living off benefits.
Look, and I'm not, lest I be misinterpreted here, I'm not for a second defending that. I would not defend...
Sound a bit soft to me, Paul.
No, I would not defend somebody who was perfectly capable of working, had no good reason not to work, but still demanded generous benefits because they chose not to work. No, I'm not defending that person, and I wouldn't support that person, but it needs to be carrot and stick. You need to give people good jobs, well-paid jobs, and coerce them back to work that way rather than taking a big stick approach.
There's so much to unpick here. I'm going to use a big stick on you in a minute if you don't shut up, because I've got to go to the weather.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, it's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. Showers clearing overnight, some low cloud remaining, even some fog by dawn, but the trend is for it to turn increasingly sunny and increasingly warm over the next few days as high pressure replaces low pressure. Low pressure already filling and disappearing overnight, and as a result, the showers and any outbreaks of rain tending to become very isolated through the hours of darkness. A lot of low cloud, I think, especially for England and Wales, and some fog patches forming by dawn. But the clearest skies will be across northern Scotland. Here, temperatures dipping close to freezing in some of the most sheltered spots, single figures widely. Further south, it's a mild night, and again, there'll be some low cloud and mist as we start things off. But that will, through the morning, lift and it will break up. Eventually, we'll see some sunny spells break through. I think still some cloud remaining, still some showers across England and Wales, but not as many as recent days. There'll be plenty of fine weather on offer and it will feel warmer. 26 Celsius there, the high in the southeast, low 20s widely elsewhere. And into Sunday, again, a bit of a slow start, some mist and fog first thing, especially for southern parts of the UK. Breezier further north with some outbreaks of rain for the north and northwest of Scotland. That tends to ease later in the day as sunshine develops widely across the country in time for the start of next week. And as that happens, temperatures rise.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Michelle, call security. He is insane, says Victor. But you don't tell me which one it is. I don't know which one it is that I should be calling security to get hold of. Very quickly, that jobs guarantee scheme that Paul wants the government to launch, would you support that or not?
Well, I mean, it's not actually new. It used to happen in the 19th century in times of great distress. I think it happened in the recession in the 1930s too, where the government creates jobs for people to go out and build roads and do things like that and employs them to do it. And it's a fine old traditional Victorian workhouse solution. I don't actually see that it has anything modern to appeal to it at all. But my main point is, it is the solution to a problem we literally do not have. We have the opposite problem.
Well, there you go. I don't think you've landed that point. I'm not sure. We might come back to that if we've got time just before the end of the programme. And as for who employs the people that works on the road, quite frankly, I'd just love to see anyone working on the road. I get sick and tired of speed restrictions and cones and all the rest of it, and not a workman in sight. Where are you all? What time are you doing your work? Why?
They're waiting for the concrete to dry.
Yeah, they're waiting for the concrete to dry.
GBNews.
What, on repeat, over and over and over again? That's a nice answer, look.
That's our sort of audience, isn't it?
He's trying to curry favour with me, isn't he? He's trying to, like, get on my good side again. Anyway, look, should the state be funding safe spaces for drug users? Yes or no? Your thoughts? See you in 2.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Dewbs & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton, for 2 hours packed full of unfiltered opinions, unique takes and fiery debates. I guarantee you blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think. Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in their home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry alongside me Daniel Moylan, who's the Tory peer in the House of Lords, and Paul Embry, a firefighter and a trade unionist. If you've just tuned in, you've just missed our conversation about whether or not it should be easier or harder to claim long-term sickness benefit in this country. One of my viewers had just written in and said, Moylan 1, Embry 0. The challenge is on. The challenge is on, everybody.
An unexpected goal.
Well, what can I say? You managed to get Daniel riled. I don't think I've ever really seen that. Normally quite a mild...
Yeah. I like to think of myself as mild and composed, but that got me very upset.
Oh, you got him hot under the collar, everybody. Right, let me ask you this. Do you think the state should be funding safe spaces for drug users? People call them different things, but like drug consumption rooms, basically, because a committee of MPs has recommended that Scotland should introduce the use of these rooms. Now, one of the things here is because Scotland can't basically do this without some funding and support from Westminster, and now what people are suggesting is if that support and funding doesn't come from Westminster, perhaps Scotland could do whatever it is that would be required to allow it to basically do this for itself. Before I get onto the kind of nuances of funding and Westminster versus Holyrood, whatever, the concept of the drug consumption units, would you support that or not?
Look, this is a really complicated issue, Michelle, and I don't claim to be a great expert. There was a report done for the government a couple of years ago by somebody I know quite well called Dame Carol Black, who's a former president of the Royal College of Physicians. And she made it very clear that, you know, that there are two parts to dealing with the drugs problem in this country. One of them is cracking down on the criminal side, but the other is treatment. And I agree with her that the focus needs to be on helping people out of dependency on drugs, and more money needs to be invested in that. Now, do drug consumption rooms fit in with that, or are you better funding spaces in which people can come, in which they can actually wean themselves off their addiction? I don't know the answer to that very easily. I don't claim to be an expert.
You have detox clinics, you have
but I
detox
think
facilities.
the detox approach and getting people off drugs is what we should be focusing on, and this could well be a distraction from that.
Well, look, there was some figures that was released last week, right, and it showed that in Scotland, if I can just get this up on the screen, Scotland's drug death rate is one of the highest in the UK and the rest of Europe. Look at it. Scotland is right up there at the top. So are these kind of consumption rooms then a way to help stop these drug deaths?
My fear is it's just another step on the path to legalisation, essentially. And I'm a real reactionary on this, I have to say, and I say it unapologetically. I think drugs are a scourge on our society. I think that
Or even alcohol?
No, we're talking about, you know, recreational drugs.
Right.
And you know, there's an argument to say if we knew what the consequences of alcohol would be all of that time ago, would we have introduced it into our society as widespread as it is? Certainly with tobacco, I think if you said to people now, you know, if you knew then...
Yeah, booze and fags got invented today, would they be legalised?
Well, exactly. And I think with tobacco, certainly most people would say, well, no, of course not, because we've seen the damage that it can do.
But bring it back to these rooms then. What do we think to them?
Well, I kind of am. And if we don't take the same sort of view on this, there's a big lobby pushing for legalisation, and I think initiatives like this are very much part of that overall strategy. And if we don't take the view that we do now with tobacco, i.e. we know the damage that drugs can do, particularly with cannabis. I mean, people talk about cannabis as a harmless drug. It really isn't. And there's now a wealth of evidence from medical research is showing that there is a clear link between using cannabis and serious mental illness. So why aren't we doing what we say we would do with tobacco? If we knew then what we know now, we wouldn't legalise it. We're doing the very opposite when it comes to this sort of stuff. And I just think that we need to perhaps enforce the law. We've got this myth that there's a war on drugs in this country, and there really isn't. I think we need to take an approach like perhaps Japan, who do have a very, very stern anti-drug laws. It is no less a civilised or free society as a result of that, but doesn't have any sort of serious drug problem. We shy away from that in this country, and I'm never sure why.
Massive tangent, but I've travelled around Japan and I've never got over the fact that grown adults, don't cross the road until the lights say that you can. So even if there's no cars coming, honestly, anyone that's travelled Japan, you'll probably agree with me.
It's a very ordered society.
Actually, there are lots of countries where that's called jaywalking, and there are lots of countries where jaywalking is illegal.
Yeah, I just find it very odd.
We're unusual in not making it illegal to cross the road with a red man.
Oh, it's very annoying, though. I have to wait right now for the green man because I'm trying to teach my child. You have to wait for the green man. And I find it so frustrating when it's an empty road. I'm like, come on, hurry up.
You don't stop at red lights anymore when your chauffeur's driving you around, do you? You're like the Prime Minister.
Shut up, you.
Like when the butler's bringing the champagne.
Well, chance would be a fine thing. Chance would be a lovely... Actually, I'm going to get a glass of bubbles in a minute. You can serve me if you want. You can do a bit of practice for that potential role, should it become available. Anyway, I do wonder, would people want one of these consumption units at the top of their street? Because because the premise would be basically that these people could go in with whatever drugs they've got. You could potentially get it tested, see whether or not it's a safe, clean drug. Then you'd be able to potentially access things like clean needles and all the rest of it. Well, my thought about this is, well, it's all well and good making sure that these addicts, they have clean needles and safe drugs and all the rest of it. But where do these people then go? So you've got this mass congregation now of these people going into this unit at the end of your road. They're not going to sit there, are they, and experience the high and sit in this room for God knows how many hours. They're going to go off.
Well,
would you want that at the end of your road?
Nobody, I think, would put them in a residential area. You know.
We're not going to have it in the middle of nowhere, because how would people access it then?
Well, it might be in a centre of town or something like that. I mean, I'm not proposing this, so it's not for me to come up with solutions. I have serious doubts about whether it is actually not a distraction from what needs to be the main focus, which is helping people off drugs, rather than...
The main focus, if you ask me, should be helping to stop people take that first hit, because unfortunately, when you have that first hit, you know, the addiction, it's on you then, isn't it? It's, to me, the key is how do you stop people having that first potential hit? You tell me, because drugs, they don't just destroy the lives of the person using it. The devastation that it causes to the wider friends and family and beyond is absolutely immense. Don't go anywhere. We've got lots more coming up.
On Mark Dolan tonight, I'm back for 2 hours of big debate and big entertainment featuring TV legend Sue Cook, radio star Mike Parry and my Mark Meets guest, the horse racing icon who survived cancer and went on to win the Grand National Bob Champion. In my big opinion, Net Zero and ULEZ are a war on people power. And in my Take at 10, my verdict on Prince Harry's new documentary. We're live from 9.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dewbs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello there, Michelle Dewberry till 7. Daniel Moylan, the Tory peer in the House of Lords, alongside me, as is Paul Embry, a firefighter and a trade unionist. I saw a good news story today, so I was desperate to share it with you because apparently drinking beer could be good for your gut health and your immune system. That's what some scientists suggest. Apparently, drinking pints could be better for your health than abstaining altogether. It might even be more beneficial to your gut than probiotics in yogurts and cheese. I'm sure someone might disagree with that, but you know what? I'm taking it. It's my positive story, so cheers to that. Cheers to your gut health. Cheers to your gut health. I don't think they mentioned Prosecco, but, you know, details. It's all the same, isn't it? Cheers. Daniel did not serve me my drink. Very disappointed. And then, not only did he not serve me my drink, he's got the absolute audacity to complain that he doesn't like his drink.
This is the worst beer I've ever drunk, actually. I mean, you only have to look at it, look right through it.
What's wrong with it?
Dreadful. And it tastes of nothing at all. Well, it does taste of is something I wouldn't want to mention.
These lords.
This time of day.
These lords.
But it is pretty pathetic. Can I just say something about beer?
Go on, what?
OK, what I want to say about beer is, Paul said earlier that we wouldn't have allowed alcohol if, perhaps... But alcohol was safe. The great thing you have to remember is that through most of human history, water has been what you died from. Water taken from rivers and ponds and so on was dangerous. So people learned quickly they had to do a couple of things that would make it safe. One was you boil it and you throw some herbs into it. So you get tea, you get things like that. So you drink the boiled water because it's much safer than drinking it out of the river or the pond. The other is you distill it into one form, spirit alcohol. Another, again, is you ferment it and you get something like beer. And all of this was intended to protect you originally from all the bugs living in the water and the bits of excrement and the dead bits of animals and fish and whatever else it might be, and things like bilharzia and so on you get in Africa.
He's not having any of your nonsense tonight, is he? He is not having any of it.
That is meant to be healthy for you right from the outset. Anybody who tried to suppress alcohol at the outset of its history
needs to give their head a wobble.
On health grounds, needs to give their head a wobble.
This is like listening to a kindly old uncle giving you a bit of a life.
It's different now, but it wasn't always the case that you turned on the tap and you got safe water.
Every day's a school day at GB News.
Yeah, you learn something new every single day. Lots of you guys, I've got to say, you're very harsh when it comes to that drug. You know, that safe space for drug users. If you just tuned in, you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll have to just rewind it. Someone's saying here, yes, Michelle, you can put all of what you call druggies into a room, a safe space, and then lock the door for a week, and that would sort it out. Ernie says you should lock the fools up, feed them water, and only let them out when it's clean. This is not an illness. Addiction is self-inflicted stupidity. Oh, goodness gracious me. Do you agree with that? Really got you guys divided tonight. Ben has said all it will do, these rooms, is promote people taking drugs by making it safer. It will not stop them. There's not a lot of sympathy for people that use drugs at the moment. And I guess there's a part of me, because I can see both sides to this. I can see the menace to society that drug users are, but I can also... Part of me feels a little bit sorry for people, because as a teenager I used to live a very different life to the one I live now, and I was around a lot of people that use drugs, and I know people that lost their lives because of it. Maybe I'm just going soft in my old age, but I don't know. Should we have drug consumption rooms or not? I don't know. One of my viewers, you've made me chuckle. David, he says, David, the Postie's been in touch about my outfit. He says, have you borrowed your outfit from Star Trek? He sent me a picture. Well, I've got to say, I think you need to give your eyes a wipe. I don't look anything like him. Or maybe, like, I don't know, maybe there is a little bit of similarity after all, is there? I don't know, you tell me.
Separated at birth.
Separated at birth, there you go, yeah. Someone else said that I look a little bit overinflated tonight.
Your eyebrows are a bit more bushy than his, I think, Michelle.
Well, a surprising fact, I was actually born with one eyebrow. It was the first thing that my mum, she'll be watching tonight, she'll tell you, it was the first thing that she actually noticed about me. I can't do that thing, though, whatever it is, the fingers, the weird Star Trek thing, so that's where the similarities end, the dress. Anyway, look, that's all I've got time for. Paul, Daniel, thank you. Loved it. It's feisty, isn't it? Have yourself a fantastic weekend, everyone. Don't go anywhere, though. Lee Anderson is up next. Cheers.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, it's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. Showers clearing overnight, some low cloud remaining, even some fog by dawn, but the trend is for it to turn increasingly sunny and increasingly warm over the next few days as high pressure replaces low pressure. Low pressure already filling and disappearing overnight, and as a result, the showers and any outbreaks of rain tending to become very isolated through the hours of darkness. A lot of low cloud, I think, especially for England and Wales, and some fog patches forming by dawn. But the clearest skies will be across northern Scotland. Here, temperatures dipping close to freezing in some of the most sheltered spots, single figures widely. Further south, it's a mild night, and again, there'll be some low cloud and mist as we start things off. But that will, through the morning, lift and it will break up. Eventually, we'll see some sunny spells break through. I think still some cloud remaining, still some showers across England and Wales, but not as many as recent days. There'll be plenty of fine weather on offer and it will feel warmer. 26 Celsius there, the high in the southeast, low 20s widely elsewhere. And into Sunday, again, a bit of a slow start, some mist and fog first thing, especially for southern parts of the UK. Breezier further north with some outbreaks of rain for the north and northwest of Scotland. That tends to ease later in the day as sunshine develops widely across the country in time for the start of next week. And as that happens, temperatures rise.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech.